On today's episode, I sit down with Danny McMillan. Danny started Seller Sessions, which is effectively an education platform turned podcast centered around helping people learn how to do e-commerce better. He has a business called DATAbrill, which effectively works with the 1%ers inside of the Amazon space, helping them with PPC management and a whole lot of other things. The topics that we cover are quite different to the ones I usually speak about. It's all centered around mindset and health, and really getting the other aspects of your life that are less talked about, but I would argue more important. So have a listen. Hi, and welcome to Successful Scales, the show where I interview now successful professionals about their journey and try and garner insights onto any tips that can be applied to your business at home. Whether it's financial freedom or the exit of your company, wherever your journey may take you, the idea here is to simply learn from those who have done it before. I hope you enjoy and you get some value out of this. Buckle up and enjoy the episode. Danny, welcome to an episode of Successful Scales, mate. Thanks for taking out the time today.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were sitting and having a chat before this, and I was like, we should just push record because you've really covered some super interesting topics already, and something that I haven't really spoken to in any great detail with any of the leaders and you know, some of the more serious people taking their life and their life in business really seriously. So before we dive into all of that, I'd love for the person who's been living under a rock and doesn't know who you are, no, I joke. I'd love to hear a little bit about you and, you know, give people a bit of insight.
Okay, so I'm originally from the music industry, and then, you know, between music industry, 2007-8, I then went into the tech industry in the UK. So you got what we call Silicon Roundabout, which is a smaller scale, obviously, compared. So done some startups, launched a bunch of sites, cut my teeth in SEO and PPC. And in 2015, I decided I wanted a bit of a change. So I thought, right, I'm going to start reverse engineering marketplaces. So I started with eBay. And the thing is, I don't drive, right? It's probably a lot to do with music industry and partying and DJing and stuff like that. So you're not going to want to drive yourself home. But lo and behold, 45 still don't drive. So the moral of the story is I've packed up a load of stuff around the house to sell on eBay, reverse engineered the platform and everything else, walked to the end of the road and forgot the post office is shut down 2 years ago. And I thought, you know what, fuck that. I ain't getting on the bus every day, taking the stuff to the post office. So I came back with all this took and my tail between my legs, went back on the eBay forum, March 31st, 2015, Amazon FBA. I'm getting the shiver now. That was like, right, lights come on. You know, when you get that moment, like you've been playing around with different things, right? So I launched a bunch of sites and really dialing in on stuff. But I wanted to do something I love to work on stuff that gives me purpose and meaning behind it. And when I found that, I was like, that's it. Like lights come on. Launched 3 products in the UK, just as test products, right? What draws me to it was PPC. And when I see the Fisher Price PPC engine that was on Amazon way back in the day, it was obviously very basic and everything else. And if you look on YouTube, go back to 2015, I was one of the first, if not the first person to work out the correlation between a PPC sale and ranking. And I've done it across 3 different products to demonstrate that. So I scrapped those UK products and then launched in the November the 3rd, 2015 into the US. And it just kind of went on from there. So launched a brand, and then I was doing some events with another guy in the UK. We were putting on like meetups that were not selling out because they were free, but we created this model where it was free education, free pizza, free booze. And then we'll get the currency style companies to come in and fund those events. So we're doing them and we're teaching people what we learned about our journey. We know we're novices back then. It's 2015, 16, it's the gold rush. The Americans are killing it. With her in Amazon FBA, there was barely a community here in the UK. So we've done that for a while. And then in January 2017, we launched Seller Sessions. right? And this, what's really important with that is to get where the routes to markets are. Okay, so we launched Seller Sessions, which was a webinar every 2 weeks. Now, what was happening, we're bringing in all the big names in the US, but they were in hotels and the not dial-up, but very low internet connection, like up speeds and stuff. And the platforms were falling over. And so they were, we built up a list because of the registrations. I said, okay, then let's move it to YouTube. So pre-record, upload to YouTube, use a main list, send them to YouTube, growing very, very slowly. Then the next part of it, we've done 40, 50 episodes. We back wrote a show notes for each one of those, and then done SEO and built on a WordPress blog. So you had the shows and then you had the show notes. Still growing pretty slow. And in the October, we've got all of these shows. So I've done a bit of research about launching it as a podcast. And then it took off like a rocket ship, 40% month on month. And that's the point of, you do stuff and you have to go down all of these different channels and then scrap everything, not scrap it, but just focus on the one that's right and double down. And that then became the medium that set everything up for today. So we're close to 700 episodes now of Seller Sessions. And then I was out on the road speaking, met Dr. Ellis Whitehead in Germany. I was speaking at an event in Mannheim there. I think it was Mannheim or Frankfurt. And he approached me about doing the PPC software. I said, no, I'm not getting in that space. Even though I've been doing PPC since 2008, I just thought, it's just like, I didn't want to get in the software. We had a startup burnt through £500,000 earlier on. And I just thought, I didn't want to go that route. But then when he sat down with me, he said, look, what we can do is we can munch on SKUs. Like a lot of the problems to solve on the PPC agencies back then, 2018 or so, was no one wanted to use software. They would say that software blows up. Ellis is an algorithm expert who worked on Jungle Scout algorithm. He was part of their team, the original team there, and he's a data scientist as well. But it allowed us to take on clients with hundreds, if not thousands of SKUs, because it becomes more and more expensive. So that's how we kind of set out from there. And then after that, still going out touring, speaking on the road, etc., around Europe. Then we launched Seller Poll in 2019 and 20. And then we launched Seller Sessions Live that sold out, and it kind of exploded with that and the podcast. We've got the next Seller Sessions Live been moved 6 times through COVID. So the second Seller Sessions Live sold out in 3 weeks. So that kind of really took off there. And when COVID hit, there was a lot going on in terms of, like, the way I see it was like, we've been here before. I'm 45 years old. We've done recessions, we've failed in businesses and all these kind of things. And there's a lot of fear factor going on. So I've done 2 things. One, put the foot down. Like when everyone went on defense, we went on offense. And then decided for the community side of things, it was like, one, it beholdens me and make sure I am active every day. We're not sure what's going on. So 4 p.m, 7 days a week, 77 days in a row, we were doing the Facebook Lives and bringing everyone in from the industry. And then we had like Mindset Sunday and all these different things going on. So we're allowed to do an array of content. It was really good for people to express themselves. We were talking about COVID in some, but mainly it was kind of content. While that was all going on, we launched the first Branded by Women, which was in the May last year. That was going to be a physical event, but I spoke to Yoni and she said, look, stick it online. Everyone's sitting at home. So in 6 weeks, we worked 7 days a week for 6 weeks to deliver the first Branded by Women. And then since then, we've done a second one.
And I was lucky enough to attend that. It was fantastic. I saw some incredible women sharing some really interesting positions on a whole lot of topics. I mean, I feel like you covered.
Well, there was 3 days, 45 presentations, but not everyone will probably know this, but I don't think it's been done in the industry, but I was very lucky to have great contacts. And what we did is we set up 26 promo spots. So in a 3-week period, we had 26 promo spots, 4 live shows in the evening of the week of Branded by Women, 3 days of content, which is 45 presentations or so. Yeah, about 43 to 45 presentations. So it was a lot that went in to like the number 2.
Mate, it's amazing just hearing you sort of talk about your experience and your journey, and just realizing sort of how deep the rabbit hole goes into the different areas that you touch on, and sort of what's crafted your expertise and sort of the areas that you play in. And, you know, it just really highlights. So even going through your background, it highlights why it's such a privilege to have you on here to talk about some of these topics. Like, you know, the one thing that I want to ask you is, you know, when I'm hearing the way you sort of talk about all the things that you do, there is this undertone effectively of giving. You know, your whole position around, you know, everything that you've said hasn't been, and, you know, I speak to a lot of different people in the industry on the podcast and beyond, you know, it at no point has it been about the revenue or the, you know, the prices or the model. It's been, how do you add value and educate? And on the back of that, you know, effectively what you said in a roundabout way for me was that you looked at having the big corporates fund the actual delivery and giving them access to the people. So they're actually, you know, it's almost like a Robin Hood-esque, if you will, you know? So,
yeah, I mean,
what drives
some people don't always get it. I have 3 rules in business. Does it make meaning? Will it make me happy? Will it make me money? And if those fall in line across the 3 in that order, then I'll do it. And that gives me my opportunity to say no 99 times out of 100. I think some people like, well, where's the catch? He does his podcast. What's going on? And he gets to 700 episodes. It's like, he ain't fucking stopped. He's still going. And people sometimes find it hard to work that out. I'm simply not motivated by money. I'm the worst entrepreneur in the world for focusing on money. I think you make meaning, you make money. So I will make less money than a lot of other people out there, but I love what I do. I get up in the morning and I have a purpose. I get up for a purpose. I'm 45. I've done the music industry, everything else. I've chased money, been fucking miserable. So what I do now is I chase excellence and purpose. And the side effects of that is money.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a big philosophy for me too. Money shouldn't be the driving force. It should be the byproduct of the impact that you've had.
If money is your motivator, if that's what gets you up in the morning, do you? But it doesn't. So I can't pretend to be that person that go, oh yeah, look at the size of that check. Let's go and do that. I can't do it because I can't get up. And that's why I need, does it make meaning? Does it make me happy? Will it make me money? You know?
And you know, and it's very, I mean, at least to me, very, very apparent the way in which you look to add value first. Also, I want to highlight, and I know we talked about it a little bit before, but you know, the whole position of the show is about helping educate people on how they can effectively implement things to help them grow their businesses, their lives in general. I'm also a big believer that, you know, business shouldn't be a defining factor. If that is who you are in life, then, you know, you should probably, you know, look to expand beyond that. It's, you know, it's just one facet of, and I think it's a risky game as well to have it define you. What happens if your business falls down? You know, if that's all that you had, it would be
that's
very
why it's free.
Yeah, you know,
that's why it's free, because you need to make sure that you've got multi-stream income. Yeah.
So you know, what brings on, or for you, like you strike me as a guy who's very sort of regimented. You're super, you know, 77 days in a row, and we'll get to talking a little bit about your workout routine and everything else beyond that. But, you know, how does that play into everything that you do? What are you a big believer in that?
Yeah. So everything I start with, I don't think, oh, okay, let's do 77 days in a row. It happened. You turn up. You get up the next day, you turn up. A lot of those days you're tired, exhausted, you're putting out fires, but you're committed. So you turn up and you do it and you enjoy it and people enjoy it and people, you know, and so it then goes into the next day. So, you know, 7 days turn into 10, turn into 50. And it got to the stage of we've done 77 consecutive days. But since then, we've done over probably 200 Facebook Lives from that point. Yeah.
Which is amazing. And I know, I mean, I see them virtually every day, and you've now, you know, brought people in to help you manage that, and you're really turning it into, you know, a pretty well-oiled operation, effectively having, you know, multiple people delivering key points and key elements of content. You've turned this into, you know, an effective system and a way to impact more lives and have more specialized content on more topics. And I think that, again, that seems to be the way in which it sounds like to me, you've approached it, where you sort of figure it out, you build the infrastructure and the understanding, and then you look to expand. How do I impact more people? How do I find, like you said, I mean, that was super interesting as well to hear that you went from, switching to YouTube and then looking to build the show notes in a WordPress blog to build, so many different, everyone's sitting here seeing, Danny, who has 700, episodes live, and, there's all these podcast episodes and a massive following and all these things, but you don't often hear about the fact that you've been through, 5 iterations to get to the sweet spot of the thing that actually happened and made it work. And so that same level of commitment where you show up every day and you go through that process.
Being relentless. You got to be relentless. So that's the thing. If you're focused and you're relentless, like people, I suppose, see, a lot of people stop by my doorstep virtually, if you think, they want to start a podcast. And I say the same thing. I'll sit down for an hour, go through absolutely everything. I tell them exactly what I do, because I want them to take the same formula and go off and do it.
Yep.
It's not a problem. I've got nothing to hide. And one of the first things I say to them, the first 100 episodes, throw them in the bin. And they go, what? I said, yeah, just throw them in the bin. Effectively, you got to keep doing that. It's churning on and on and on and on. And because what happens is people get 20 in and they go, where's all my leads? So focus on excellence. Don't focus on the leads. Focus on, like, so I have 3 rules. You like my 3 rules. 3 rules on the podcast.
You got a lot of rules, mate.
Respect your audience. Content comes first. And frequency. So I say the same thing to those guys, and it's just, you got to keep pushing on. Someone like Norm Ferrer, Norm. So he's doing really well, and he's got past his 100 milestone. And what happens? It's around year 2 or 3 that things like this kicks in. Because the reason I understand a lot of this, I was in the music industry, so you could DJ for years, make records, and people ignore you. And then it's normally around year 7, once you developed your sound and everything else, that if you're going to break through, you'll break through. So I see the same thing with the podcast, because it's a very finicky area. Like someone who's on Instagram and they decide they want to do modeling or whatever. Most of that won't take off unless they're persistent. And it's like year 2, 2.5, they get that little break that comes through. It's very much the same thing with the podcast. And I think you're seeing it now with Clubhouse. A lot of people are on there, and they're what I call doing a land grab. It's just launched recently, a few months ago. So you're getting the same faces on Clubhouse all the time, maybe because they didn't do the podcast thing and they didn't get a slot here and there. And so what I love about that is that it's unfiltered. That means a new bunch of people can come through the industry without a filter. There isn't I'm trying to think of the word, like if there's 10 of us in the space doing podcasts, we invite guests on. So suddenly we become a filter, right? So if the content's, but on Clubhouse, you've got your own voice. As long as they unmute the mic, if you've got something good to say, the cream will rise to the top. So you're now getting people that are really starting to develop on Clubhouse. And I think it's brilliant because it brings new people into the space. And it also makes each year the awards interesting, because new people come through, so new people get voted. So do you see what I mean? And you start to see that sea change coming through, and there's a big enough pie out there for everyone to enjoy it. If you're good enough, you'll make it through.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in that. Another way of phrasing that for me is, looking at the world in abundance. I'm much more of the abundance versus scarcity mindset. Like, I'll invest as much time. If someone's going to listen to advice, and hopefully I give good advice, but if someone's going to tap me on the shoulder and ask for insights, if you're going to go and take that information and implement it, and it's going to help impact your life and your business, I'll teach you how to fish 10 times out of 10. And so I guess my question to you, what's your take on the whole Clubhouse? Like I was part of that land grab at the start, and I pretty quickly, your hours is similar to mine. So it's pretty late at night where people are most active. And I got to say, I lost a bit of interest. I felt like I was getting hammered by the lack of filter in some cases. Like I sat there sitting there just hearing really unfiltered advice. And the way in which, even if you've got a following of 2 people or a following of 50,000 people, the reality is, if you've put yourself in that position,
Mm.
hold yourself accountable for what it is you're giving advice. And for me, I never like to give, a direct, you should do this. This is exactly how you should do it. Everyone needs to make those assessments and figure out if this is a right fit for them. And so I'd
Mm.
love to hear your take on Clubhouse, because on one hand, like, I've made some amazing connections and it's been super interesting. I had a bit of fatigue from it, but yeah, what's your take?
It depends on a few levels. I think what you've got is you've now got a stage setting, so everyone gets a voice. And like you said, the one thing, because there's no camera, there's a human element of when there's dry air, we wait 0.5 of a second, and then everyone talks. So what happens is people talk over each other unintentionally because they hear the silence, leave the gap, and on a biological level, we all speak at the same time. So you've got this thing, and it might change now because I haven't been on there for about 4 to 6 weeks. So you have to correct me if I'm wrong here. This whole, I'm not sure where
is as good as mine.
I'm not sure where that whole, right, we're going to reset the room. And then they reintroduce everyone on stage. And one of the things is, who's very good at it now, I think Paul Barron knows how to hold a room and keep it balanced, keep it moving. But I think there is a fatigue where people were not faying that. And it's not easy hosting the panel. This is coming from someone who's done nearly 700 podcasts. I've failed my way here, right? Your first few podcasts, I can't even watch them. Fucking terrible.
Yeah, awful.
But you get a refined skill. So imagine you've got loads of people unfettered that are going onto this platform and doing that, and they're hearing other ones and going, let's reset the room, and they go around all these people, you should follow this, but and in the end, like, you've then got the audience. So with the audience, they want to get information, so they're hearing this reset the room every 10 minutes and go around 20 people on the stage. Then you're going to get people like talking over each other. I think it gets a bit clumsy in some places. And then what you do also get, you get the audience that are nervous because they're up on that stage and it's all their favorite people from the industry, like, oh, I'll follow his podcast and so they're nervous. And then when they ask a question, it's about 20 minutes long and it's got like four or five questions into one. So even saying to someone, if you're hosting a room like, and they've probably got better to cut that down, just as an example, is just to say, okay, who's going to, bring them up and ask a question. Say, please answer your question, one sentence long, with less than 15 to 20 words, making it a very singular question or something along those lines. Yeah. And that allows the person, when they unmute the mic, they go, hi, I'm Dave from Ipswich, and I was just wondering about this, that, and the other. Because you've got to think of the interest of the other people on the stage, and more importantly, the audience that tuned in to listen. So I think a good MC will make a massive difference. And the second point I would make, there's always going to be two types of people in any of this space. People that are pushy and salesy, and people that deliver content. And I believe content over long term always wins.
Wow, that is like an amazing audio bite to pull out, marketing team. So just to give people that advice, because I think, shout out to Paul Barron. I have to say, I literally reached out to him after I heard him moderate a room, and I just said, no, I haven't seen anyone do it as well as he does, and still to this day, super,
he's got it down.
talented.
He's mastered it. Yeah, he's mastered it.
He's really mastered it. But that's a great point. You sort of get in, like, you got to follow all the people on the stage, and like, no one's there to hear about that. They'll make their own decisions. Move it on, get to the content, and add the value is really, what I'm looking for as well when I'm sitting in those rooms. So, mate, I want to move on to the topics that we were talking about before, because I really feel like it's one of those aspects that is so rarely talked about in the public forum. But, I would say one of those underpinning regularities and consistencies that when you build it into your lifestyle, and it's the stuff that people typically don't see, that has the impact. And what I'm talking about is effectively the health and the mental game that's attached to everything that's going along. And I mean, you gave me a rundown of your routine and what you're working on. So Matt, I'd love you to share whatever you feel comfortable sharing, sort of where you're at, because
I'm an open book, so I can share it all. So effectively what happened, this is going on for years, and you can hear on another podcast. I'm not tired of talking about it, but people are not interested. Oh yeah, he's got brain fog. So I have a thing with brain fog, which is caused by heavy metals like, so I got high levels of arsenic and mercury, and also ultratoxin A, which is mold exposure. So since 2015, I've struggled where I get brain fog. So I can go weeks where I'm working 2 or 3 hours a day, then it clears, then I'm okay again. And I've done tens of thousands of pounds going through medical systems, gut specialists in the US, all types of things. And it's been an ongoing process. And what I decided to do is October last year, I just decided, right, I've gone all the normal routes. I've gone and had naturopaths and everything else. And I read someone's blog about they had mold, and they said, like, because they always tell you should just rest, right? But if you rest all the time and you sit there like an old person, your bone density reduces, you're not as active, you're sedentary, and that actually makes you worse over time. So on a metabolic level, you'll start to age like someone who's gone into retirement. So sometime, I think it's 4th of October, I decided, and get a group of people together. We're hitting lockdown. I was like, okay, movement is medicine. Let's get people moving, yeah, and no days off. And it's for Amazon sellers. And then we've got a regular crew of people, and we share them on Insta. So the idea was a 15-second clip of you working out or walking or whatever you want to do, but as long as it's moving. And we had people that had water bottles because they didn't have any gym gear, and they were using them like weights because they were inventive in what they're doing. But the whole point is, we're nearly 9 months or so into 8 months into lockdown. Let's make sure everyone's good. Because I noticed, like, I speak to people in the industry, and I hate using the word mental health because it sounds like there's a stigma around it, but people are getting pissed off for sitting indoors 7 days a week under fake lights and everything else. So I'm overweight at this point, and I decided, right, I'm going to start training. And I'm from a kind of David Goggins perspective, right? I know he's a bit nuts, but I love what he does. He's like, your mind will give up before the body does. So I started training. I set up a boxing gym next door in the garage, started posting daily. Within the first week, like, I'm doing 10 minutes a day. Twice that week, I'm in bed because I'm fatigued, exhausted, and everything else. And so slowly over time, I built up 15, 20 minutes, half hour, and started to build it up. And as I started to feel a lot better, I started looking at what else, because whenever you read any literature online, everything is like, oh, you need to do that because of brain fog. So I looked at TRT, which is testosterone replacement therapy. So when I had a test, my testosterone came in at 400. The range is 350 to 1100. So I've gone through the proper channels, and I have Optimal, as a company in London here, who I work under. I do bloods every 6 weeks and everything else. So in December, I started on TRT to help with the brain fog. By the time the next measurements come round, I'm like a 20-year-old. I'm like 1150. So I've gone from 400 to 1150.
How did you feel? How did you feel when you went from 400
recovery, to... my recovery felt better. Yeah, but I'm still having issues with the brain fog. And then I went and had another test done for B12. And because of the ultratoxin A, B12 is hard to absorb via the gut. And so you have absorption issues. Now, the B12 range is 200 to 700, I think. Mine was 43. That's like, wow. Definitely. That's so low. It's it's a quarter of what the bottom of the range is. So now I do B12, I jab every day B12. So testosterone, TRT every other day, B12 every day. And then the next stage I added to it, because I'm still having issues with brain fog. Like from January until now, most people don't know this because they see me out there all the time. But I was working 3 or 4 hours a day because I'm still fatigued. I'm training in the gym. I feel good after, but I just can't get going. Like, I can't sit in front of a spreadsheet for longer than like 20, 30 minutes. And so I contacted a guy, David, from nootropicsexpert.com. And he had ADD and CPTSD, right? And so he went around the medical system, and so he spent 2.5 years building these stacks because he was on Ritalin and everything else. So I started on I've got a I've got a daytime nootropic stack and I've got a sleep stack. So like my kitchen is like a science lab in there. So TRT, B12, an array of nootropics to get me back up on my feet. And so I'm fully focused, doing a number of hours a day in front of the computer. So it takes all of these different elements. So he designed these two stacks for me, and boom, lights come on. I could sit there, look through spreadsheets. My mentality.
So the nootropics was the key, or you believe that the whole sort of holistic approach?
All of these build into each other, but nootropics turned the brain back on, because I always felt like I'll be okay for a few hours and then it feels like you've got like sawdust in your head. So you try and look at a screen for 20 minutes and it kind of starts to go a bit blurry and you can't focus. So then you have to go and lay down. The difference is with the nootropics, what they do is that when you've got things like mold and you've got heavy metals, they change neuropathways. And so like I might have been producing a high level glutamate, and where it's not clearing, it's leaving toxins by the, I'm not technical here, but like they're leaving toxins there that haven't been swept to the system. So the first day I had some choline, the choline went boom, 10 minutes, it's gone. I'm like, completely gone, brain fog. So I 8 months this run of brain fog I had, or 7 months where it just wouldn't clear.
What was the I mean, this is fascinating stuff. You're really opening my eyes to a whole, like for me, I do a lot of training, I swim a lot, I'm walking the dog, I'm a pretty active person, but you're effectively, like we were saying before, biohacking. And you're really getting to the crux of what works for you. What was the moment in time, or that sort of, shit isn't working, it's not going the way to plan? Like, what was your, I don't know if rock bottom is an overstretch here, but what was the sort of the driving decision behind it?
I think, come around to October of last year when we were on lockdown, I decided, okay, I want to be 2.0. By the time we come out of full lockdown, I want to fix my health, because your health is your wealth. I'm lucky I've got teams around me. So, but like, it's no real life to work 3 or 4 hours a day and then go and sit down for the rest of the day, and that's your day over. It's gone. You're exhausted, you're fatigued. And at one point I was having like shakes in his hand. It wasn't until I had the B12 that the shakes stopped. So it was almost like a tremor. Every day I'm watching my hand go. And I'm like, this is just...
Must have been scary.
Yeah, it is. Because you don't know whether it's Alzheimer's or anything like that. You don't know. But then as soon as I had the nootropics and started working with these stacks, it's like, boom, sleep slightly improved. I'm still only sleeping 5.5, 6 hours a night. And I want to get to like 8 hours. And I think it's what it is, from my understanding, is that your gut is on the separate circadian rhythm. And the damage I've got from SIBO and the metals and stuff like that, I like wake up and I'm wide awake at 4 o'clock every day. I mean, people laugh because they see me. It's like, does this guy not sleep? But that's the time I wake up. And then what time I go to bed, I wake up 4 a.m.,
So yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're not getting a whole lot of sleep, so you can understand it. How much do you think that not sleeping? I suffer a little bit from that. How much of that not sleeping do you think is attributed? Like, do you have a healthy?
Massive.
Yeah. Do you have a healthy routine though? For me, like one of the rules I've made now, and I don't always stick to it, is I like to leave my phone in the office, in the home office, and not in the bedroom, because my immediate inclination is, right, get up. What emails have I got? What's happened on LinkedIn? What opportunities exist? Who needs something from me? And I'll sort of dive into it. Whereas, like, do you have a meditation practice or something that sort of sets the day? Do you have anything like that in your schedule?
Well, I actually have, like, there's a chakra meditation. So I have a guy who does healing work and everything else, which is part of it, the breathing and everything else. So I have him twice a week. I work with him on that, but that's a daytime thing. On an evening, I'm like everyone else. You start off really well that you're not going to look at your phone, and then it does, and it becomes out of control. And so I'm the world's worst for that. But I have like these kind of wax type, so they lower the attenuate a lot more than normal ear covers for when you're sleeping. So I've got like these wax format where they form to your ears and you throw them away after. Put them in, and I've got eye guards that I wear. We've got like red light in the bedroom instead of normal like yellow light and stuff like that. We try and make sure the heating is turned down and the room's cool on most occasions. But yeah, I've literally tried so many different things. So I'm going to look at maybe upgrading my stack, because even the recent stack for the night, I'm getting off to sleep quite well, but still wake up at 4 and I can't get back to sleep. I need to dial that in, because the final stage of all this, and it's just started this week, was I've brought in a former Mr. Universe bodybuilder, world champion, to put my diet and my lifting plan together. Now that I'm on the testosterone, my bone density is good, we've tested all that, I now want to lift weights to bring down my metabolic age as well. And as you get older, I'm 45, it's good to lift heavy shit effectively, because that will help in terms pro-life, like prolonging. So for me, this isn't about ego. This is about reaching the top of the summit of being chronically ill to being healthy. And that's the goal. And lifting weights as you get older and having the right rest is going to be really important. So one of my problems I've got at the moment, let's just say in the 12-week period, I want to put on 12 pounds of muscle, right? Like I've seen statistics on this, is that when they tested a 12-week run of someone who slept 8 hours a night and someone who slept 5.5 to 6, the one who slept 8, because it's all in the recovery, right? It's not when you lift, it's when you rest. And so the person that slept for 8 hours had 60% more gains. So with me, I'm like, I'm in a rush to dial in that sleep now, because all the work that you put in, you're only going to see 40% of that, you know?
I mean, you know, everything that you're outlining here just shows that, and this is probably one of my favorite quotes, is how you do anything is how you do everything. So, you know, it's an impressive regime that you have set up for yourself. You've done the research, you've got a deep understanding of sort of where your body sits right now. You know, it just shows that you're really putting that much attention and effort and investment into your personal health and well-being, and that is, you know, going to be directly attributed to the impact that you have in business and how many people you're going to help educate. So, you know, I guess that's really the center of it all, is that looking at your life holistically and not compartmentalizing business and I'll make this sacrifice and I'll make that sacrifice. It always catches up with you. So investing the time to have that holistic approach to living a better life is paramount. And it sounds like, you know, it's been 200 days, I think you said, nearly, of constant
I'm coming
movement.
up for 200 days. I'm about 172 days into no days off. So my next landmark is to hit the 200 mark.
Which is unbelievable. I mean, to do anything for 200 days straight is, you know, even 172 days straight is unbelievable. And to have such a regimented schedule. I mean, also, I got a question for you as well. The TRT and the B12, is that in perpetuity for life, or is that
So the thing is with B12, you can have an enormous amount of B12 and it's just expensive urine, because if it does, it's water based, right? And so from my understanding with B12, they actually, when there's certain poison, arsenic poison or something like that, you'd have to look it up online, but they would pump someone with B12 to clear that out of their body. So B12 is good that it's water based, whereas say like you were doing vitamin D, then you're into different arenas now. So B12 would be daily until it clears up, because I also have cholestyramine to help with the ultratoxin A, is the binder to bring it out as well. So that's part of the regimen with their health. I'm having the system supported as you're detoxing like the toxins from your body. So when you're released toxins, it's going to cause fatigue and it will cause brain fog. But with the nootropics, that crosses the blood-brain barrier, so that allows for not to have the brain fog and slowly bring the toxins out of the body. But going back to the original question, we're on it for life. Yeah, but I'm also on part of the TRT, I think it's called HCG. And what HCG does, it retains your natural testosterone that you've got, right? And so if you came off of TRT, so let's say my natural, I'm at 1150 now, my natural is 400. The HCG maintains that 400, and it also maintains reproduction as well if you plan to carry on. But most people, it's been well studied. There's people who are 80, 90 years old been on testosterone for about 20, 30 years it goes back. But what it is, I think, is there's a stigma because you think of steroids and you think of all these meatheads who just want to get pumped and get jacked up, and they're blasting themselves with anabolic steroids. So instead of, I don't know, 125 milligrams a week, they're like 2,000, and they're out here and they weigh, they've got a neck like this and tree trunk for legs because
or a lack thereof one.
But you do a psychoanalysis as well, because you got to think is that you got to be compos mentis to give someone like testosterone and let them go off on it, because obviously it raises that, and so that you need to be a balanced person. So I go through an agency in London. It's all above board. It's not off the black market or anything. I get tests every 6 to 8 weeks. I get all my bloods done. You got to do it all properly. And what we found is that 1150 is above the range. So we dialed my dosage back down. So the game isn't let's get it to 1100 because that's the range. The game is, where is it optimal for you for best health? So it may find out that my optimal level is 859. We don't know yet because it takes a while to dial in the sweet spot.
Wow.
So the goal for me is maximizing health, not maximizing vanity.
And that makes a whole lot of sense. At the end of the day, going through what is a whole lot of regimented trouble for it to only be about vanity, it's not going to last, and it's not something that it doesn't sound like it's in your DNA, just in terms of about your pretense to add value and support. It's not doesn't sound like you, mate. I realize that we're getting close to the end of time here now, and I have all these questions running around in my head, but I'm not going to ask them to you. I feel like you've really you've outlined a lot of super interesting and just a unique perspective on effectively the mental game and taking care of your health. Like you were saying, and I can't remember your exact phrase, but effectively without your health, you are nothing.
Well, and the thing is, I've had family members that has attempted suicide twice through COVID. I've lost 2 friends through COVID. Like,
sorry to hear that.
School age, and I think we've seen it, the massive increase in terms of mental health, and you need, like, prevention is better than the cure. So instead of me going down that route, I live out in the country. What can I complain about? I'm originally from a council estate. I'm lucky, back in the day, I could have been on the 15th floor with a broken lift. But I'm not. I look out there and I've got a beautiful view. But even for me, I still felt like I was in an open prison for a period of time. So for me, get in the gym. So it's mentally, spiritually, physically. It's a trifecta. You nail all 3 of those, you reach the top of the summit.
And amazing insights, amazing advice. And I think that anyone who follows that and, takes a second to take a step out of their business, when it comes to growing it, I mean, if you can grow as an individual, then, your business and therefore, the holistic view of your life is going to be all the better for it. So, super interesting insight. So Danny, before I let you go, I'd love to know how, give us a bit of a plug around Seller Sessions. I watch a ton of sessions and get a lot of value out of it. But if anyone wanted to get in touch with you, we haven't even really talked about DATAbrill, which, maybe give a little shout out about, some of the things that you're actually in. You're so focused on adding value. You don't even realize that your services can probably add a lot of value to a lot of people's lives as well. But that's a real testament to you.
Thank you. Yeah. So to reach me, Danny at sellersessions.com, or visit sellersessions.com, the website. The agency we take on, we work with the 1% of Amazon sellers, which is seven figures and above. So mainly they've established themselves as a brand rather than just odds and sods in terms of products. So very product focused, and we're very keen on who we take on that we can actually help them, because again, like we have open contracts, so there's no setup fees, there's no percentage of revenue, ad spend, profit, or anything like that. It's a flat rate, and it allows the entrepreneur to grow. In the last 12 months, we've had 4 exits to the free to aggregators, 1 to a private buyer, and we've got 2 ready to pop now. So we're doing something right, and we're at the aggregator end of the market. So we're dialed in there. And so that's really our focus. There's some wonderful agencies out there. I often send people to different people, depending on the fit. Go and see Janella, go and see Destiny, go and see Brian Johnson. If they're not fit, I kind of try and help place these different people. But we're only focused on people that we believe we can truly help.
And that's the best place to be. So Danny, mate, again, thank you so much. It's been super valuable having you on, and I feel like I've learned a lot. I'm going to start looking into TRT and everything in between. I really feel like I just need to go and understand where I sit on any scale. Yeah, exactly.
$70, $75, get your testosterone done. If you know, it's a range, so 350 to 1100 in the metrics in the US. That's what I work off, even though it's the UK. I don't know the other conversion. Look at that, see how you feel. It takes 2 or 3 months to really start. I mean, and it was a side effect to this, but since I've done the training, like I've actually put on weight, but I've lost fat. So I've gained roughly 9 pounds of muscle in that period of time. So you will get more muscle gains on TRT, because I think you're in like this metabolic rate for 24/7 versus someone who's not on TRT.
So you're effectively burning more calories. I mean, who's going to be upset about that? Jab me right now.
Well, you think, right? If we look at some of the, men and women you've got estrogen, you've got testosterone. So what people don't realize as well, they just think, oh, testosterone, run around like a thug or whatever. People don't realize men with low testosterone have higher stress levels and higher estrogen levels. Women, when they move into their testosterone side, they're running businesses and everything else, their testosterone goes up. It means that their stress level goes up, but their nutrient side is from estrogen. So as a guy, you see a lot of people my age, they've got a belly and man boobs and everything else. They've got high levels of estrogen, and I bet you their testosterone's in the toilet. And it is a big change for people, and it rebalances the hormonal system. And as you go older, if you can do that and operate on a safer level, because you think low testosterone is actually dangerous. It causes brain fog, it causes fatigue, and people that then go on it find it can be life-changing for them just to get to an optimal level.
I mean, it's you really just need to take control of it. There's so much information out there, and so we're sitting here focused on understanding our business, our metrics, what's happening, what's you've just beautifully outlined exactly who you can help as a business, and we're obsessed with trying to understand who can we help the most and how do we focus our attention on them. But focusing that attention on yourself and your health, and getting the first step of understanding what your testosterone levels are, what your B12 levels are, what you're allergic to, all those aspects. I mean, the quality of impact to your life, and therefore the surrounding output that you can have. I'm sure what you feel today, nearly 200 days in, if you look back 200 days before that, you're probably a totally different person.
Yeah, no, it was a struggle, but again, you don't count the days. Before you know, you just arrive at it. It was like the 77 days of the podcast. That wasn't the plan. We just happened to land there. So you do it, you turn up, and before you know it, it compounds.
Amazing. Well, Danny, again, thanks so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's been great, and looking forward to seeing you around the traps, mate. Hopefully see you in person in the not too distant future if they open up each of the countries.
Indeed. Take care.
Thanks, mate.